Good evening. Today we are going to address a subject that is kind of controversial, I think. A lot of people have opinions on this subject, and most of those opinions are guided very much by marketing or are either guided by marketing or labor, like how much work something takes or how much money it makes them or something of that sort. Now we're going to try to look at this subject in a way of physics. And what you're going to see here is grain spreaders. Grain spreaders are something that everybody uses, or a lot of people use in the grain industry. Some people are going to tell you you need to use this spreader or that spreader or the other spreader. Now, what we're going to try to do today is look at grain spreaders purely from physics and look at what is our goal with a grain spreader, what's our goal, and then also what is our how to achieve that goal. So to start with, there's going to be a lot of millwrights who actually do the work that are going to say, don't use a grain spreader, just pile the grain in your bin and then core it when you're done. Now, that is not bad advice. Most of your big bins, that's how it's done. Now, when you fill a grain bin, the grain falls in the top, all of the grain. The large particles are going to flow down. Your fines are going to stay in the middle. So you're going to end up with high concentration of fines in the middle, your nicest grain flowing out towards the edge, your whole kernels, your cleanest grain, and then your pods or corn stalks, they're going to bounce down to the edge, your large particles. Coring it, you pull the sender down and you make it so the sender is as low as the eave, so that way the air comes through the sender. So when you go to purchase a grain spreader, the first thing, let me eliminate these roofs just for better vision, but the first thing you need to look at when deciding on a grain spreader is, what is your goal? Is your goal for good aeration? Is your goal to keep the bin so you don't have to core it? Like, what is your goal? Are you dumping hot corn in this bin? Is it just a storage bin? Is it a drying bin? If it's a drying bin that you want to keep level when it's half full, there are spreaders kind of designed for that, but we're going to get into why that is a bad idea. No matter what you're trying to accomplish, if your goal is to level the bin, Shivers makes a grain spreader where they try to, it's a variable speed, to try to keep the grain level so that way the drying is even. Because they turn the pan slow, it works pretty good. For a Shivers to work real good, you actually need this system here, which actually levels the grain and makes it that you have a level bed of grain. So if you are not drying grain, if this isn't a Shivers bin or something where you need that grain level for the air to come through even, then the job of a spreader is to spread the fines out. To take the fines so the fines are not concentrated in the middle and the whole grain running to the edge, the goal is to keep the fines mixed evenly with the corn. And we're going to look at a few different ways that people go about it. You have this style spreader where it is a pan. This is a different brand here that I'm going to bring on. But this shows a pan where it's just a small pan with paddles on there. This pan spins, throws the grain out to the wall. These electric spreaders actually do a pretty good job of making the grain level. If everything's adjusted just right, if the grain flow is the right speed coming in for the size of the opening, and it's turning the right direction, like they do a decent job of making it level. But one thing that you're going to see if you actually do some testing is this little 18-inch pan or 2-foot pan spinning violently at high speeds, flings the whole kernels out to the wall, and the fines drop straight down. The heavy stuff flies the farthest, and your fines drop straight down. So what you end up with is a bin that looks somewhat like this, as far as the grain level being fairly level, and it looks good to the owner. Wow, my grain spreader's working good. But if you pull samples, you have every bit as much fines in the sender as you do with just dumping in without a grain spreader. Your fines do not spread out on here any more than here if you are using this type of spreader. One with a pan, high speed spreader. Maybe it's a different brand. Maybe it's one that looks like this, where it's gear drive, no belt, inline drive. That little pan is going to throw the kernels to the edge of the bin. The fines are going to go straight down because fines don't weigh enough to get flung to the bin wall. And you're going to end up with a bin that the grain is the most level, but your fines are no more dispersed than this. And the benefit of this is you can core it and pull a lot of those fines out. So if you're going to put a spreader in to level the corn, you're better off putting it in without a spreader and then coring it. Now there are situations where if you're dumping hot corn into a bin, where you're going to put a couple rings of corn in, you want to aerate it, cool it down, put a couple rings of corn in a couple days later, then you may want to spread it out. And what you're going to find is there are spreaders that, there's a few of them here, and I want to be careful which ones I point out. In reality, this spreader here does as good of a job at spreading the fines as as this spreader here. This one here don't spread the fines out any more than this one. This one is going to make your bin more level, but your fines are sooner going to flow down off of here and actually flow out away from the sender. Now I know that's very controversial because this is not going to make the corn even in your bin. But that is not the goal of a grain spreader. The goal of a grain spreader is to disperse your fines, not just make the bin even. So what you're better off having is, if you see right here, this would be like a cord bin, or if you have a spreader that gravity flows off the spreader and the corn lands halfway between the wall and the sender, and it spreads the corn in such a way that the fines go out a chute and dump off halfway to the eave of the bin, or the flow of grain is going out, so it's hitting here. That way your thickest fines are in this area, and then your grain flows back to the middle and out to the wall. This is about as good as any spreader is going to get it, is to have the fines distributed evenly around a circle. So if you're running heat cool, you want a spreader that does this. Now, what you're gonna find is that on a lot of spreaders, on a lot of these spreaders that spread the grain good, like Gravity Flow, you're gonna see spreaders like this. And if you're dumping hot corn, these bearings in here are not gonna last. They're not gonna last long enough to say so. And once it comes time to work on this spreader, you're gonna need a higher crane to work on it. So this is a great spreader, it's just not a long-term spreader. It costs a lot of money for what it achieves. And if you're dumping hot corn through it for where you actually need a spreader, which is for hot corn, then, and for spreading the fines in with the whole kernels, this one will do that job, but it's not going to last real long without maintenance. And maintenance is very hard on these spreaders. It's a very costly thing. These spreaders here, I have another one here, and again, I'm trying not to point at brands, because my goal is simple education on spreaders. You see this one here, they have a bunch of troughs. These spreaders here also do, I'm going to say, somewhat of a good job of spreading the fines out with the kernels. So these are not a terrible spreader. At the same time, they don't, the cost and the maintenance gets too high. They get plugged up with birds' nests and stuff, and then you're putting corn in the bin and it's flowing over the top of the hopper and not working properly. These spreaders here tend to work great the first couple years, kind of like that big single arm spreader with the weight. They just don't seem to hold up long term. Then you have these spreaders right here. We have some more 2-arm spreaders. This is another one of an arm spreader, which spreads the grain out, and to get that type of thing going on where you get your fines spread out halfway around the bin. I personally have no experience with these, but with the way spreaders are supposed to work, I like this design, because you don't need to be moving anything. You just set these arms, the grain flows out, and you get piles around the bin that have the majority of your fines. They have the majority of your fines spread out around the bin, not just falling straight down while the kernels are flung to the wall. So this looks like a very good spreader as far as physics go, and so I like this spreader. Have no experience with it, couldn't tell you how well it holds up. One more spreader that I would like to show, and that's this right here. This is a 2-arm spreader. These here I have a lot of experience with. They have 2 arms. They turn slowly. Gravity turns them. No motor. And they have poly blocks that they turn on. The poly blocks last for many, many, many years. Way longer than your these spreaders here. Your one arm with the weight out the other side, the metal bearings, they don't last, they corrode, they seize up. And these here with poly blocks, they last for many, many, many years. So these here are a inexpensive gravity spreader. They're a $600 spreader that spreads the fines out, That way you have your fines halfway between the wall and the sender. Do they make it even? No. Do they spread the grain the way they're supposed to? Yes. The problem with lots of spreaders is people don't understand what they're actually designed to do. People look in their bin, see the corn uneven, they want to see level, they say my spreader isn't working properly. To know if your spreader is working properly is to know if your fines are distributed through the corn or if your fines are ending up in the middle. A spreader like this can make the bin level, but it will never spread the fines with the whole kernels. This here makes the farmer feel good when he looks in the bin, but it does not reduce plugged sumps because you have a high concentration of fines in the middle and you end up with more plugged sumps that way. That is the reason Sump Saver does the business it does, because people are spreading grain in their bins with these thinking that somehow this is going to help them. It is actually making it worse. The heaviest kernels are going to the wall and your crappiest, lightest stuff is falling down in the middle. And that's the stuff that plugs the sumps. So if you're, another thing with these spreaders, if you have, say, this spreader, and you're loading your bin with an auger, or if the downspout, the way it comes in, if it does not land centered in this cone in the sender here, it's going to fill the bin uneven. If you have the corn coming in the side of this spreader, it's going to fill the opposite side of the bin faster than the one side. And so if you have a spreader that mixes the grain nicely in your bin, the fines and grain, and your one side of your bin is a ring fuller or 2 rings fuller than the other side, that does not mean your spreader is not working. That can mean it's not working if your arms aren't turning, or if you got plugged arms on here, if some of these are plugged. That it can mean if one side of your bin's fuller than the other that there's a spreader issue. But just because one side is slightly fuller than the other side, that does not mean a spreader issue. You have to look, is the spreader doing its job? Do all these chutes have grain coming down them? Is your arms turning on this spreader? It might be doing its job just fine, just filling a little uneven. That does not hurt anything. Filling a bin where it's, by the time it gets up to the top here, it's 2 rings off side to side, that will not hurt anything. Putting an electric spreader in, making it level like this, spending lots of money on a spreader to get a level bin, and then ending up with a concentration of fines where your center sumps are plugging, that's a problem. This is not a problem. If I can fill a bin with a gravity spreader and it looks like this, I am very happy. Now, I'm sure there's people who say, well, I want my bin level, that way I know it's spreading. That does not tell you that the spreader is working. That just tells you the grain is level. The reason for the spreader is to mix the fines with the whole kernels. If you're going to run electric spreader and make it like this, I'm sure a lot of millwrights would back me up that you are better, and elevator operators, you are better filling your bin without a grain spreader and then coring it to look like this once you get it full. So don't get upset at your millwright if he puts a spreader in your bin and it looks like this. Even if it looks kind of like this with the one side a little fuller or something, not level. that does not mean it's not working. Look at where the fines are going. There's an old video I had of a MC grain dryer drying corn, dumping into a bin with a grain cannon, and there's a gravity spreader in it. One of these gravity spreaders in it that's turning slowly, and I wish I had that video clip here handy. I'd put it in here, but we this is good. With a grain spreader, this is fine. This is also good. If you're not dumping hot corn in, dump it in the sender. When you get full, core it down so it looks like this, and you're good. This here, if this is what you're going for, I'm going to say I hope you have a, let me see here, a Shivers bin, and you're leveling it like this. Otherwise, no benefit to this level corn in here. No benefit. If you're getting this level corn by with a spreader, electric spreader that's flinging it out, then this here is going to cause more problems. A lot of people have plug sump issues, and they got their electric spreaders spinning, and they have sump savers in all their bins, or some sort of trees in all their bins. If I look in the bin and it's level like this, and you have electric spreader in the top, that is not, that spreader's not working properly, because what that's doing is throwing the heavy corn out, and throwing the heavy corn out, your fines are dropping straight down and not worked properly. Also, this spreader here you'll see has a belt. Please don't do that. That's not something you want in the top of your bin. If your spreader has a belt drive, just stay away from it. That's not something you want. So I hope that helps some people understand what a spreader is supposed to do, how it's supposed to work, and we must look at physics, not just level corn in a bin. This is something that I've worked with for quite a lot of years, worked with a lot of different spreaders, and yes, I've worked with this big one-arm spreaders. I have worked with these things here with all the arms, and these can work. Some brands of these are you do not want to touch. They're nothing but problems, and everything just plugs up with crap. I know of some large ones in some big bins, like 72-foot bins, where the people like them. From what I see, they're a good spreader. I think they're overpriced for what they accomplish, because a little spreader like this or a spreader like this is going to accomplish very similar to the same thing, and be a lot nicer to work on if there's problems, be a lot less cost up front, and achieve the same goal of mixing grain. The only thing I'm not sure about this is these kick-ups. Not sure how much. I would have to watch one of these work to see is the big kernels flying and the fines going down. I would think with it all moving together it would work quite well. I really kind of like this, and that is a ag new grain spreader. Don't have no experience with them, but according to the way physics work, they look like a decent spreader, something at least looking at, or talking to people who have them that run hot corn through them to see if they're any good. Like if you're buying it for hot corn, make sure you talk to someone who has one that's more than 2 or 3 years old that's running hot corn through. Not sure if these would plug here. They have, this one here has 2, 4, 6, 8 arms. I don't know if that's something that's big enough for like a 48-foot bin to have 8 arms on it. Seems like a lot of arms for a grain spreader just to get the fines spread around the bin. But it does look like a good piece of equipment that should last many years if it spreads the fines with the corn. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opinions on this, and I would love to hear them. But my experience has been this level bin is no good. That's problems. Nothing wrong with this so long as you know how to core it. Or if your spreader spreads it like this and actually spreads the fines with the kernels, that's going to be your best spreader for hot grain. And if you're not doing hot grain, then pile it up and draw the sender down so the sender is as low as the eave when you're done filling the bin with grain. So there you have it. That should help you with deciding on grain spreaders, which ones to use, which ones not to use. And since I did a shout out for that Ag New Grain thing, this Grain Master is the brand that makes these 2-arm gravity spreaders. So if you want to look at these here, these 2-arm gravity spreaders, which I have had extensive experience with in hot grain, they work very well, actually spread the fines. This Grain Master grain spreader is who makes those 2-arm spreaders. So I don't sell any of them. I'm not affiliated with any of them. It's just what I've seen that does the job of spreading the fines. And spreading the fines is the goal of a grain spreader, not leveling the bin. It's not called a grain leveler. If you want a grain leveler, Shivers makes a grain leveler. Your spread, what they call spreaders, is not a leveler. It is to spread the fines with the grain, and if it's electric, it's probably not doing it. If it's making it level, it's probably not spreading the fines with the grain. So with that said, I'm going to let you voice your opinion and let me know your thoughts on grain spreaders and what you have experience with, and how well it actually spreads the fines with the kernels. I don't care if a spreader levels the bin. That's not what I'm looking for in a grain spreader. I like spreaders that spread the fines out with the corn to get a good mix.